next topic is the martial arts perspective. Specifically, how you view your opponent. Now, I don't mean psychologically. We'll talk about that another time. I'm talking literally about physically analyzing your opponent when you're fighting. This is an important lesson to learn very early on. One that was not taught to me very early on, but learned through experience and later tutelage. But you have to think in terms of closest targets and weapons, furthest targets and weapons, where the power chain is coming from, how to read a body. And there's a lot of intricacies that go into it, and the leaner and more muscular a person is, the easier it is to read their muscle twitches. If somebody's wearing clothing, you can sometimes read the clothing, how it moves across their body to get insight into how they're going to be moving. But beyond that, you have to learn how to see without looking. You see, you have to be able to use your peripheral vision to cover the entirety of your opponent and to a large extent the environment you're fighting in. Now, if you're fighting in a fairly sterile environment, like a dojo or a ring or a cage, there's not quite as much to deal with. You still have to observe the environment, but not as much to deal with as there is, say, in an abandoned warehouse like you would see in the movies, or in an alleyway in a city, or in a nightclub. There's a number of potential hazards or hindrances to your fighting ability within scenarios like that. So being able to survey your opponent and survey the environment without constantly darting your eyes around and losing your focus off of the thing that's directly trying to attack you is important. Now, I'm sure you've heard, if you look at center mass, you can see the hands and feet pretty well, and this is true. But more than just looking at center mass, you have to kind of defocus. Don't even focus on the center mass, because then you are actually putting your attention into a specific part of the body. You have to be able to direct your attention in a way that's not actually natural to humans. You see, multitasking or multiple points of observation are actually it's not possible as a single multifunction operation. What we're doing is rapidly changing our point of focus over very, very, very short amounts of time, over and over and over and over again, hitting points of interest and kind of cataloging those in our short-term memory. The problem with that is, of course, you lose some efficiency and functionality, but then this is a fight. This isn't office work. You don't have to sit down and function on one or focus on one specific thing. Focusing on that one specific thing, say an elbow lock, you're going to spend too much time fighting for that elbow lock and likely not getting it because you're wasting so much energy in it, and you're giving telegraphs and putting all this energy that is easily readable by your opponent into it. You're just going to waste a lot of energy, not get it, and end up frustrated. So points of focus have to be all peripheral vision. It's most definitely short-term memory, but more than that, it has to be subconscious recognition. It can't be something that you're actively thinking about and weighing the pros and cons of. Your conscious mind processes information far too slowly, especially when you bring language into it. Language processes very slowly. You have to just kind of read things as more of an instinct, an image, a feeling, however you want to put it, but you know when something's coming at your face before you can put words to it. You don't need to put words to it to process that. Couple of points of interest. As the points of contact extend out from the core, they move faster. The hands move much faster than the elbows. The elbows move much faster than the shoulders, and likewise, feet faster than knees, knees faster than hips. So, where do you direct your peripheral attention? Do you direct out to the very extremities? No, because then you're splitting your attention too far. So if you're watching for the hands, you're going to end up darting your eyes and get, oh, there's a hand, oh, there's a hand, oh, there's a hand. The elbows stay closer to the body. Even as I extend, you can see that my elbow doesn't travel much more than 18 inches from the body, right? As opposed to my hand at whatever, 36 inches or whatever, it's been a while since I measured. But it's a big difference in how far your attention has to travel from the center. Now, some people will say read the shoulders and the hips as opposed to the knees and elbows. I would recommend this for advanced practitioners. You can start learning how to do this as a beginner and as an intermediate, but the muscle tics and the motions that start there are much more subtle, and they are harder to read, especially wearing clothing. So in that vein, yes and no. Some people will even say forget the shoulders and the hips, the points of articulation, and just focus on the core, because all of it drives from the core. Well, ideally, properly, yes, but there are some people that punch literally from the arm, no core connected. Is a punch much of a threat? No, but enough of them could be. Or, lucky targeting, and it could be a problem. Is there a weapon involved? Major problem. Same thing with the feet. Can you kick without moving your core? Well, not really, because then there's a weight shift involved, but it can be even harder to read. And once again, somebody's wearing baggy clothes. I'm wearing, a button-down shirt. There is a lot of fabric between, what is that, 4 inches of fabric between my side and the shirt. How are you going to read my abdominal movement or my pectoral movement through a baggy shirt? Very difficult. Once again, difficult through the shoulders, but more doable. The elbows and the knees are your safest bet. They are further from the torso, but they're easier to read. They move significantly slower, several times slower than the hands and the feet, and it makes it a much better read. By moving slower, what I mean is they have to move before the hand does. If I move my hand before my elbow when I punch, let's say my elbow is here and I move my hand first, my hand goes like this before I can extend out. And really, by saying moving my hand, I'm flexing at the elbow, right? My elbow is doing the articulation, but it's not moving through space. My hand is what's moving through space. So understand that we're using terminology here, but it's not necessarily the most anatomically, physiologically precise way to state it. But for me to move my hand, I have to articulate at the elbow. And by doing that, my hand can only move up and down. If I add shoulder into it, then I can move all sorts of directions. So in order for me to throw an effective punch, I can't move my hand and then move my shoulder. It's not going to be very effective unless, of course, I'm trying to psych you out and throw some kind of reverse hammer fist or closed tiger's mouth punch or whatever. And even then, that's the least efficient way to throw that punch. So you can see, if you pay attention to my elbow starts moving before my hand does. My elbow has to move before my hand does because it moves slower. Same thing with kicks, and in many cases, same thing with joint locking. Pay attention to what's happening towards the core. And granted, more you get into grappling and trapping, you're going to be dealing more with feeling than you are with sight. You should be dealing more with feeling than you are with sight. But when you're playing at the striking range, you have to deal with sight because you're not always in a bridge position. So just pay attention to that idea. Elbows and knees. Very, very important points of focus. Once again, not laser beam focus, more flashlight focus. Just kind of, you're shining in that direction and you're picking up the periphery as well. That's all I got for you tonight. Good journey.